दूसरा ये ऑयल की सिचुएशन जो है, ऑयल की प्राइसेस काफ़ी बढ़ गई हैं. हमारी जो बास्केट होती है, इंडियन बास्केट, दैट हैज़ आल्सो गॉन अप in last few weeks. Any increase in oil prices definitely has a lot of impact on our economy. Different situations पे अगर आप देखें, पिछले बार जैसे आपको सबको ध्यान है कि last year we imported oil of about $110 billion, right? We also export oil, roughly about $35 to $40 billion of oil products we exported. So net impact of oil was about $70 billion last year. If the prices go up, obviously this will have impact. But under different scenarios, we see the impact ranging from roughly about $25 billion to maximum about $50 billion in a year. Additional, maximum under different.
No,
this is the oil import prices.
25.
Right, and
Sir,
under different.
Sir, I would like to interrupt you here itself. What about the talks on the excise duty cut?
No, just hold on. No, I will finish.
Let him complete his statement.
Higher by 25 to 50 billion.
Let us.
At under various scenarios. So you project a certain kind of price. So that's, and basically it is the oil which impact the CAD. So the impact on oil might influence what the CAD will also impact. The bond fiscal deficit program has been going on very smoothly. There's not been any reason for us to believe that there would be any greater impact. The growth parameters are also extremely sound. Macroeconomic parameters continue to be very sound. The inflation is within the range of what we. So on the macroeconomic front, the economy continues to do well, and we have no sort of downward revision on growth or upward revision on fiscal deficit. So none of those things are worrying, despite whatever changes on the yield, etc., have taken place. We have continued with our program on borrowings without interruption. So this is also going on. So macroeconomy is fine. Fiscal deficit will continue to ensure that there is no adverse impact on that. Growth remains strong. So the situation on oil and some changes in the US, thanks to unwinding of the monetary policy, which has made the rate of interest go up in the US economy to over 3% now. So these have altered incentives for the foreign portfolio investors to some extent. They might be seeing some advantage in selling now and buying later, that kind of situation. So we have seen some outflows from the equity and the bond market, but these are not alarming in that sense. And we have nowhere any situation like to 2013. These are manageable, and the government and the Reserve Bank has been managing the situation. Our objective is to ensure that there is no volatility, there is no such behavior which is induced by unnecessary expectations or uncertainty. So orderly conditions should prevail in the entire economy and the management of the markets as well as the foreign exchange. So that is what has been achieved. I think in last few days you would have also seen there is a certain kind of stability, though it is slightly higher levels. So strong economy, good control, volatility being managed, we are going on reasonably well. Thank you.
One by one.
We will start from this side.
Yes, let us go by one.
I'll answer everybody. Right. Orderly condition.
In the weekly bond options, particularly the last four auctions, seeing major devolvements are you really concerned about the rising yields, particularly stemming from lack of participation from the public sector banks? Or what are the steps that probably the government would take anytime now
Right.
to revive the demand in the bond market?
So in last few auctions, there been some devolvement, especially on the shorter end side, between 2 to 5 years, which we earlier thought is, we had increased that kind of borrowing, that this is the market demand. Apparently that is not getting realized. But we are continuing with our program, whatever be the yield. We don't see any advantage in postponing, reacting in an ad hoc manner or in a manner which conveys any sort of lack of stability and all. So we'll go through our program. We expect the normal conditions to return soon, and we will carry on with our
So
program.
any particular steps that you're thinking at this point to revive the demand?
No, we have taken a lot of steps already. So
Any relief, basically public sector banks probably on the MTM side.
So now
let's
Shubham,
move. So
let us go one by one question.
that has also been done. So a lot of that has also been done. So no more on that front, right? Yeah.
So
I'll come back to you.
So clearly you said that most of the macros are under control, and you said very specifically that our fiscal situation will be contained. Does this clearly indicate that at least at this point in time the government is not looking at an excise cut as one of the options to give relief to the retail consumers?
So you watch the action, right? Have you seen any cut? There's been some adjustment of the price, which is also taking place.
Sorry, sir. Let him complete now.
No, I just said you've seen some of the price adjustment, right?
Right.
On the oil prices. What does that indicate to you?
That indicates the prices are going up without the excise coming down.
That's what you should read. That's what it means.
So are you ruling out an excise cut
No,
at this stage?
I don't have to say anything on that. Just watch what's happening.
The prices have been increasing this past week on a regular basis.
Prices of?
Petrol and diesel.
That's what
Right.
you said.
Yeah.
So when will you pull the trigger? Because right now inflation is under control. Prices
Which
go
trigger?
up.
The
When will you
excise
pull the trigger on excise duty cut? Because right now inflation is under control, but it won't be under control for long if you.
I won't answer that question more specifically than what I've done. So just watch what is happening.
So is it because of
Let's move. Any question on this side? Otherwise,
Arup, if you have
I
any.
think I have answered.
Yeah.
I don't.
Subsidy bills.
Sorry.
Your subsidy of 25,000 crore, oil subsidy bill for this year, projected subsidy bill, does that get affected because of it?
There is no oil subsidy bill. We don't subsidize oil.
So, but LPG and LPG, na?
So it's oil.
Petroleum subsidy.
Right.
So does that number get affected?
At this moment, we don't see any impact on that side.
Next, anybody else? Yes.
सर क्या पेट्रोलियम मिनिस्ट्री की तरफ से कोई इस तरह के प्रस्ताव दिए गए हैं जिसमें पेट्रोलियम मिनिस्ट्री ने फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री से कहा है कि जो बाई प्रोडक्ट्स हैं पेट्रोलियम के या क्रूड के उसमें टैक्सेस बढ़ाया जाए और उसका फायदा जो है एक्साइज कर के रूप में कंज्यूमर को दिया जाए?
माफ करना, मुझे नहीं मालूम इसके बारे में. So मैंने नहीं देखा ऐसा कोई प्रस्ताव. ठीक है.
Except
Right.
any other subject issues.
यूथ गोयल जी से आपका इंटरेक्शन कैसा रहा? उन्होंने कुछ बताया आपसे? 2 दिन लगातार वो आना शुरू कर दिए?
नहीं, वो मंत्री जी हमारे सारे डिसीजंस जिस तरह से होने चाहिए उस तरह से हो रहे हैं.
कुछ बताइए.
सॉरी.
ये यार क्वेश्चन.
सर, जिस तरीके से रूपी लगातार वीक हो रहा, क्रूड जो है महंगा हो रहा, तो क्या आप इसको कंसर्न नहीं देखना कि आने वाले दिनों में एक बड़ा प्रॉब्लम सरकार के लिए क्रिएट कर सकता है?
तो मैंने शुरू में ही कहा कि ऑयल प्राइसेस जब राइज होती हैं तो हम सब पे उसका बड़ा भारी इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है. मैंने आपको ये भी कहा कि डिफरेंट सिनेरियोज में कितना इम्पैक्ट भी पड़ सकता है. तो इसलिए ये कहना कि इसकी कंसर्न नहीं है तो गलत होगा. बट उस कंसर्न को मैनेज करना चाहिए और उस कंसर्न को मैनेज हो रहा है. आपको ये भी देखना चाहिए कि ये क्या स्थायी फैक्टर है, इसी दिशा में होगा, बढ़ेगा, घटेगा, दुनिया में डिमांड सप्लाई की सिचुएशन क्या है. सो आप एकदम से ओवर रिएक्ट करें या वो भी ज़्यादा ठीक नहीं है. इसलिए सिचुएशन को वॉच कर रहे हैं और उसके हिसाब से आवश्यक कदम उठाए जाएं.
सर, सरकार ने जब एटीएम हटाया था और मार्केट रेगुलेटर कर दिया गया था, तब ये कहा गया था कि क्रूड का एक हम कंफर्टेबल लेवल लेके चलेंगे कि इस लेवल के बाद हम उसमें इंटरवीन करेंगे. आपके हिसाब से क्या वो लेवल पहुंचा नहीं है जहाँ पर सरकार को इंटरवीन करना चाहिए?
You see, जब वो लेवल आ जाएगा तो आपको उसका परिणाम नजर आ जाएगा ना.
Crude के अलावा any other question? Any other? Now let's have question on other issues.
No, you have had your.
एज ए कंज्यूमर बड़ा सिंपल सा क्वेश्चन है कि मुझे राहत कब मिलेगी?
आपको कौन सी राहत चाहिए?
पेट्रोल डीजल के प्राइस से हो सकता है.
हाँ.
पेट्रोल डीजल के प्राइस से हो सकता है. 2 दिन के लिए 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 2 दिन के
So, कब मिलेगी इसका कोई जवाब नहीं दिया जा सकता, किस लेवल पे मिलेगी ये भी नहीं दिया जा सकता. अभी जो स्थिति है वो आपके सामने है. प्राइसेस क्रूड ऑयल की प्राइसेस के हिसाब से एडजस्ट हो रही.
But sir, so much so.
Please, yeah, one by one.
We talked about a 4,000 crore odd surplus from in last few days in terms of the cash. So I said I think you said 3 to 4 days, last 3-4 days you had a surplus. So do you think that the shortage was linked to the elections in Karnataka? And the second question I have, sir, isn't it a little unfair that while the consumer continues to shell out more every day, the government keeps on getting more revenue from oil? Because I mean, you're clearly getting more revenue than what you had budgeted for, whereas the consumer is paying at least 30% more than what you had said was the oil price that you had budgeted for at the time of the budget.
See, number one, this is not factually correct that the government gets more revenue. The central government gets more revenue when the prices go up. All our excise duties are specific duties. Customs duty is very small. It's too small. So no, so customs duty is very small. Mainly it's the excise duty, which is specific. So government revenues don't go up at all when the prices go up. So that's first question. Second question you had about the cash situation. The currency was going up. Last 3-4 days we have noted this reduction which is taking place. It is also a historical pattern. I mean, this is true in last 3 to 4 years, except last year, which was a little unusual because remonetization was taking place. The demand for currency starts decreasing around middle of May. It may, and then it keeps a very low elevated level until October by the Diwali time. So this is historically 3 to 4 months. It is a very low increase. So when we print much more notes and we have lower demand, then our stock goes up, and that's another trend. That first 15 days of May you see increase, and last 15 days you see the decrease. So it may seem to be coinciding with that trend. It might also have some impact of the election. I can't rule it out, but if you take it in the historical context, this is entirely explainable by a trend which is visible for longer period.
Yes.
Yes.
Deepshika.
So with crude prices rising, your FPI outflows increasing, do you see a rate hike happening sooner?
Again, this is unrelated question, right? The Monitoring Policy Committee would take a view about it as the time comes. But I just would like to sort of again emphasize the level of outflow in last 1.5 months has been of the order about $4 to $5 billion. It's not extremely excessive. Some on the equity side about $1.5 billion, some on the debt side about $3 billion. And I can't say with certainty, but maybe at a point of time the incentives of the FPIs get realigned and they start bringing in rather than taking out. When does that happen? One doesn't know. So all these factors would be taken into account. Inflation also by the MPC, and they will take a decision.
Sunny, let him.
Yeah.
So apart from numerous government initiatives, the plunge in oil prices in last 3-4 years played a significant role in India's macroeconomic and fiscal stability.
Right.
Now that the trajectory is rising,
Yeah.
and we have monetary tightening happening in the US, do you expect it to affect the macroeconomic and fiscal stability going forward?
See, again, the oil has been cyclical. So we have seen these episodes in the past also. Oil prices have gone to a certain level, and oil prices have also gone down to very low levels, which is what happened this time in 2015. So 2015 it went to $25 or something for some time. In 2001 it went to $10. So it happens, the cycle goes on. there is no great relationship, if you want to project out, between the oil price and the growth. There have been very high growth in the economy when the oil prices were very high. So there is no necessary linkage between the oil prices and the growth. So we hope and we think that even if the prices remain somewhat elevated, we might and we should see a very strong growth in the economy.
So as you said that the prices are, as you said that current crude prices are well within the comfort zone of the government when it comes to the macro situation, fiscal and etc. But what with the growth trajectory in the crude oil prices, what do you think would be the benchmark when you will call it a trigger, and as we see that the prices are rising on a daily basis, what could be the highest level that could actually make the government worried?
I think the critical part of your comment is the growth trajectory. What is the price growth trajectory? I can't see it. I don't know anybody else can see it.
So the government must be having
Right.
estimate, right?
So that's what I said. Under different scenarios, you project a certain kind of impact.
Your estimate was
So
$65.
you
Right.
think that any rise in oil price is well within the budgeted limits, whether it crosses $90 per barrel or something like that?
See,
If you would not like to
how
put
do
a
you,
figure, let me go.
how do you, no, I can't have any particular number in mind, right? So, how does the prices impact the budget, right? The prices might impact if you adjust the excise duty, because today we don't have any direct subsidy, right? So, if at some level, if that level reaches, the government decides to tweak it, then it might have some impact.
What is that some level? What is that some
I
level?
don't want to speculate. I don't want to.
Sir, going forward, can
Yeah.
we see more long-term bonds being issued and lesser of short-term bonds? As you said that most of the development happened in
This is, as I said earlier, we had sort of changed the composition of the bonds which we offered, anticipating that this is what the market demand is. It seems for some weeks now that that does not probably reflect the right kind of demand from the market. We'll watch for a couple of more weeks, or maybe 1 or 2 more weeks, and then if needed, we will tweak the composition.
Okay, so that's the Secretary of the Department of Economic Affairs, Subhash Garg, assuaging concerns on the macro, saying the government is doing everything it can to ensure that there are no slippages when it comes to the fiscal deficit. Has talked about oil prices, saying that while oil has gone up and the Indian basket has gone up as well, the government is watching this very, very closely. No clarity yet on what the government's plans are when it comes to excise duty. The clamour has only been getting louder so that consumers stand to benefit from it. So let me now invite Dr. Ashima Goel of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council on ET Now. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us here. My first question to you, and I know you were connected during the press conference, clearly the government is trying to allay fears on the macros, whether it's the depreciating rupee, what's happening in the bond market, the rising crude oil prices, the decrease in allocation by the foreign portfolio investors. Is it really as simple as that? There are no alarm bells at the moment?
There are negative factors affecting the macroeconomy. But, I think one of the things about the reforms we've seen, the sort of structural improvements, the improved institutions, is that we can handle shocks better. There will always be shocks, but earlier they would have a much larger impact. Once you have inflation targeting, there's less pass-through of oil prices, second round and so on. So the MPC will react appropriately if they take a view that it is going to be persistent. First of all, it's not clear that, oil prices will really sustain beyond 80 for an appreciable period of time. So, because, Saudi Arabia could be worried about alternatives developing, and the long-run view is that oil prices should soften. So one has to watch and then take appropriate steps. And so the rupee also, we've had experience in 2013. And there was a certain learning process about what works and what doesn't in terms of reducing volatility. So some depreciation is good at this stage to encourage exports. And beyond that, there are various intervention tools available, large stock of reserves, and how to deal with focused demand for dollars. Last time they used that, supplying dollar swaps to oil marketing companies, which was very effective. So there are many tools the government has, and they will use them as appropriate. I think institutions reduce the impact of shocks, and there is a range of tools available to deal with these. And even internationally, I do not think that everything progresses in the same direction necessarily. There will be some reversion perhaps of prices. And then some increase in oil prices and some depreciation helps exporters. It helps remittances to India, and it increases demand for Indian exports.